Let's go.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the Pick Your Brain podcast, a platform to showcase creatives, social issues, mental health, and community empowerment. I don't need an introduction. You know who I is. It's Champ. Let's go.
So today, Simone is not with us today. So
it's going to be a better episode today.
Facts. I can agree with that.
So it's just the three Scorpios today. We got to go at it.
This is Kyle, by the way. Kyle right here.
What up, kid, folks? It's Mike D. What is good?
So what are we doing today, folks?
You know what we're doing today? We interviewing Mike D.
It's a funny thing. We come in here with no plan.
Hey, they don't need to know
We're
that.
just going to go at it.
They
Let's
don't need
go.
to know that.
Let's go.
You put three Scorpions in one room, you think they did a whole movie, bro.
Let's go. Let's go.
You know, I'm not going to lie. I think that's the beauty about us three being Scorpios and just water signs. Yeah, we have agendas and formats, but you know, when we got to freestyle shit, like, dude, we don't even trip, bro. We just make it as we go.
We flow like water.
It's a conversation, bro.
Be like water. Be like water. Let's go.
We stay passionate.
Ooh, look at you, Michael Thomas. Let's go, bro. 13, bro. 13.
I feel like we are very passionate signs. Right? You know what? Speaking of passion, Mike, what have you been really passionate about lately, brother?
Oh, man. So many things for sure. Things I got into, this podcast is, for sure. And then there's the blaziblah podcast and the production of the PYB podcast. Yeah, and so, I'm just continuing to try to work, expand, and the UGAT, clothing, streetwear, and also just, we just trying to eat out here, That's it.
Tell the, for those PYB listeners who haven't checked out blaziblah yet, well, tell them what it's about. What is it?
blaziblah podcast is an extension of Pick Your Brain podcast, but because I'm a community organizer in the Filipino community, I have a brand that represents the Filipino culture, history, and struggle. So it's a must that I, engage in our Filipino community in a sense. So blaziblah podcast is a platform. A platform.
Inside joke.
But yeah, it's just me connecting and building and breaking bread with our folks in our community to tell their stories, their struggle, their victory, their migration story. And so so it's been really fun. And I got to video editing. It's definitely fun when you learn something new and you go in it and you just kind of dive in it, it's definitely it's fun for sure.
You know who else likes breaking bread? Jonathan. For those who don't know.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that because two things came to mind. One, it's kind of funny how we're talking about breaking bread and it's Easter, saying Jesus and stuff like that.
Okay, break bread.
And then the second thing is, I love Logic and I've been listening to him a lot more recently. And there's this one song called Soul Food, and he has a bar that says breaking bread like I'm Jesus, money and everything, but somehow eases. And so when you said breaking bread, I was like Jesus?
The whole time I was thinking about Jonathan eating bread. For those who don't know, when Jonathan gets really drunk, he likes to munch on bread. He just adds bread.
What kind of bread?
Any bread.
Hold on. All right, so I gotta let our listeners know.
Let's go.
I love bread, just any bread, whether it's like sandwich bread, sourdough bread, French loaf bread, whatever, any kind of bread. But I love pandesal. I love pandesal. And so kind of going with what Kyle mentioned, whenever I would hang out at our friend Daryl's house, have a little too much tequila or whatever else, I always knew he always had pandesal in stock. And so that was my go-to. I hit up Daryl, be like, yo, hey, bro, you got any food? He's like, I got shit. So I'm like, no offense, he got like some shitty chips and whatever. He's like, and I got pandesal, and I was like, bro, let me take that pandesal. And so I owe him like 3 packets for sure.
I'm on it.
If he wants to know real pandesal, you know, get it straight in the market, 5 a.m. in the morning in the Philippines. Bro.
Yeah.
Oh my
While it's
God.
warm.
My mouth is watering.
When
right
it's like
now,
warm, like fresh baked.
God. Bro, they give you like 100. I swear to God, dude. We used to buy that all the time in the province.
Pandesal, let's go.
Sheesh.
You know, I think the first time Daryl served me, the first time Daryl served me pandesal at his house, he warmed it up for me. And I was like, why are you warming it up? It's like, it's bread. He's like, no, bro, it's a different kind of delicacy. And, you know, it was, I would say when you like heat it up, you know, get a little warm, it makes it nice. But dude, if you're talking like straight out the oven, bro, just freshly baked,
forget about it.
That is an experience I need.
Hey, there's one in Seafood City. There's like,
Oh, yes. Boleros.
yeah, Boleros, fresh baked all day. You just go,
You mean
just come in.
Boleros?
Yeah.
Valerios?
Yeah, Valerios.
Valerios. I pronounced it wrong. That's my bad.
So today's episode is about me, motherfucker.
Come on, bro. He's telling Jonathan how to get fucking bread. Oh my God.
So we're doing a 101 with all of the cast.
If y'all didn't know.
Our today it will be about me, and so again we have no plan. We're just gonna blaziblah. We're just gonna chop it up, and we're just gonna go with the flow.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Mike. Which pandesal do you love the most? There's all time. Which type do you love the most?
I just like plain pandesal, freshly baked, nice and warm.
With instant coffee?
Right? You gotta have the coffee. You know what I mean? Like you gotta dip that shit in coffee.
Hell yeah, bro.
And just like gotta slurp that you know what I mean? Get the ASMR. Forget about it. It's a morning thing, you know. I got my cigarette, I got my coffee, I got my pandesal. Forget about it.
And getting more Filipino than that, bro.
That's what it is.
I have a question.
Let's go.
Is it so, you know, you from what you're talking about, you consume pandesal with the coffee, morning coffee, that sort of stuff. Is it do you also eat it alongside with like breakfast meals and that sort of stuff? You know what I'm saying?
No, it's just the coffee and the pandesal. You just dip in coffee and just, you know what
Damn,
I
I
mean?
need to try that shit.
Yeah. Like it just softens it up and it just gets smushy and you just bite that part.
Bro, you know what's hella bum though? Pancit canton and pandesal. Have you tried that?
Oh, you
before?
like you a sandwich? You make a sandwich out of it?
Wait, no, I don't. Is that what you do? I don't do that. Do you do that?
You open it up and you put the pancit in
I
there?
have not done that before.
The pandesal sandwich?
On the side though, sheesh.
Or you gotta do the pandesal and the Filipino spaghetti in the pandesal.
Oh, I have not
You know
done
what I
that
mean?
yet.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever eaten like pandesal with breakfast platters or something like that?
Oh yeah. Like
Egg.
sometimes put the eggs on it and
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah,
Yes,
for
sir.
sure. Yeah.
But sometimes what I'd be doing is, you know, I'd make myself, you know, some eggs and, you know, like sausage, whatever. And then I consume pandesal similarly to a tortilla, you know, so I have it as an addition, that stuff. So I was like, I don't know if that's a sin or not. I ain't trying to get hate coming my way. So, you know,
No, we do.
sprinkle that in.
We do that.
Mike, I got another question for you, brother. Okay. So when you first came to America, for those who didn't know, Mike's from the Philippines. He moved here at what age?
11 years old.
11 years old.
I thought you said 80. I was like, bro.
Okay. what is that?
87.
Holy shit. Okay, I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So, what was the first weirdest breakfast dish, American dish that you ate, and the best thing that you loved coming to America, breakfast dish wise?
The
Best and worst.
The best and worst breakfast, like new coming into the country, new culture. I would say ham.
That was the worst?
I don't know. It's the best and the worst.
Really?
Well, because it was something new to me. Like, you know, I grew up poor and we didn't have access to meat and shit, right? You know what I mean? And so, like, I was like, oh, that's kind of. Yeah. Oh, hash browns. Hash browns. Like, I
God.
wasn't used to that. Like, potatoes, like, You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I wasn't used to hash browns. And so, but I did love pancakes. I'm a pancake guy.
You see Jonathan's face?
Talk about food out here. Wait, do you have snacks today?
You know, unfortunately, I actually ate earlier, so I don't have a meal right now. But
You already ate it.
I mean, you talking about hash browns and pancakes? I'm
Right?
like, bro, we need to go to IHOP or some shit, bro.
You want to be outing, dude.
I
You know what
have
I'm saying?
Peanuts, right?
Yeah,
let's
I
go.
Oh man. Okay, so on a serious note, though,
Oh,
right?
let's go.
I know, we all know that you're in the community activism, the activism community, right? As for Jonathan and I as well, right? What are some projects that you've been working on lately with the orgs?
Projects, well, in terms of NAFCON, we currently have a campaign which is called Filipino American Agenda. And within the Filipino American Agenda, we're hoping to really expand, collaborate, work with other individuals, business, and organizations to be able to endorse this agenda. And in that agenda, there's a list of the different sectors from the youth, the workers, migrants, LGBTQ, the healthcare workers, and so many more different sectors. And there are specific demands in regards to having more resources and protecting workers, and especially in the case of COVID-19, because a lot of people have been impacted by specifically the workers. And so there's like a list of these demands, and we're hoping to get our community at large, which is 4 million strong in the US, and we're hoping to have folks endorse it. So if you guys want to check that out, if you want to endorse the Filipino American Agenda, come check out nafconusa.org. NAFCON is NAFCONUSA.org. So come check that out. There's a Filipino American Agenda. You can endorse it. If you want to check out the details in regards to the demands of the community, feel free to do that and then sign on to it. So those are the projects that's happening with NAFCON. And on a local level, we're trying to do like town halls and to get more input in regards to the community and what's happening in the community, to be able to actually be in community and be with community, right? Because we can't talk about like, oh, this is the change we want for the community without actually being in the community and asking them what kind of change they want. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be on the ground, integrated with the very community we want to serve. So that's what's up with NAFCON. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, just for folks who may be out of the loop. What is NAFCON, and what's the stand for?
For sure, NAFCON is National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. It is an alliance of Filipino organizations across the U.S. with different chapters on the local, like from New Jersey to D.C., Maryland, Virginia, to all the way to Seattle, to Portland, to across the U.S. So we hope to continue to build more and expand. In a sense, like we expand building power, right? We have to build our community power and our political power to be able to demand these things that we want for the community. And so it's a must we do that. So NAFCON, National Alliance for Filipino Concerns.
Let's go. Is there any action or planning with the anti-Asian attacks with these Filipino organizations as of lately that you know of? Because there was I don't know if you all seen that last one, but there was a 65-year-old Filipino woman. I know you shared the GoFundMe link.
Right.
For those who didn't know, she just got beat up by this person who said, "You in the wrong neighborhood," and 3 security guards just watched her. They released the full video. They did end up going to her later, and I think someone was fighting the dude. But they ended up finding the dude anyways. And 65-year-old lady, Filipino woman in New York City.
She was on her way to church, and she got kicked in the face and got kicked on the ground. And so it's definitely real, you know what I mean? Like, situation is getting real. People are impacted by these things, the things that we're witnessing, and it's very scary in a sense. So it's a must that we figure out what's the best way to protect our community in a sense, And within the Filipino American Agenda, there's actually a demand for the Biden administration to figure out, to defend and create resources for the Filipino American community and the Asian community. So Biden will have his 100 days in office. So we hope to put together a group of people to come to lobby in his office to actually provide this the Filipino agenda, including in regards to doing something about the current issue of violence against Asians and specifically Filipino community. So yeah.
Oh my God, you're right, dude. Holy shit, his 100 days in office are coming up soon already.
Right?
Crazy.
Wow.
So like, this is a great time. And like, the first 100 days we have to like really keep them accountable. Like, so what have you done in regards to your promise? And this is what we want in our community. Whatever community that you're part of, like make these demands. And then if, we'll see and we keep them accountable. Like, that's what we can do as a community.
Yeah.
So, I've been seeing a lot of this on social media lately. There's been a lot of Asians advocating for more stricter rules on the justice system, where they don't want to let like these people out who are beating up these Asian communities and targeting them, and how they want to, in essence, just make it more stricter for these criminals, quote unquote, right? How do you feel about that? And instead, if you were against it, what resources would you suggest instead in terms of protecting the people against these Asian attacks?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to understand where it's coming from, right? So first and foremost, we have to study our history. We have to know the systemic issues that's happening. Like we know that the current administration and the current leader of that administration called out a specific group of people in regards to like, this is the people that caused this pandemic, right? And he called it what? China virus, Kung Fu, or Kung Flu in a sense. And so not understanding that he has a national stage that has an impact on the people, the masses, and not understanding, and will take that word and say, oh, well, these people are at fault in this situation. So then you see the hatred coming from a group of people saying, oh, well, we hate all types of Asians, right? And so then they enact violence in a sense. But there's also white supremacy in play in terms of whether it's the Atlanta shootings. That was in a sense like premeditated, you know what I mean? Like there was a preparation in a sense to actually take on and enact that violence to the place and also the group of people in essence. So, but there is in a sense, like I'm kind of in terms of like the hashtag Stop Asian Hate, right? So it's not necessarily inclusive. So for me, it's more like violence against Asian. That is more inclusive. Because another group of people that are non-white that might enact violence, sometimes it's not necessarily coming from a hate perspective or hate for the group of people. Sometimes it is rooted in economics, right? It's like rooted in a way that it's people are trying to survive. They see someone that's vulnerable and they want to take advantage of that specific group. You know what I mean? Especially the elderly and women, right? And so then if you said Asian hate, then you're saying that group of people hate that other group of people, which actually necessarily doesn't have to be the truth, right? It's not necessarily true in essence. So the more inclusive word is, violence against Asians. So in terms of hate, in terms of racism, like it's really only the white supremacy has the power in regards to enacting racism in terms of its institution. It has the power to enact, right? Like another group of people is it's harder for them to enact racism because they don't have that power structure at play. You know what I mean? And so in regards to like violence against Asian, it's not limited in the American society. We know this historically. And I was sharing like currently there's 400 military bases wrapped around China. And imagine all those bases on those Asian nations that are occupying an Asian country. And we know that when military comes to town, that's no good. You know what I mean? Like usually, especially the impact on regards to the women, right? And so on a historical level, this is where the Asian fetishization it comes from. Because white supremacy and imperialism and colonialism has access to all this Asian country on on all different levels, politically, socially, and militarily, and actually want to like really capitalize or like really take advantage of these communities. And so we are seeing that on a historical level and global level. And so yeah. Let's go.
Holy shit! I did not know about. I mean, you just connected for me right now the whole
Yeah.
fetish of Asian women. Shit,
That
connection. Wow, that just blew my mind right
So fetishization is a form of racism. You know, it's enacted on Asian women. Like the fetishization of Asian women is rooted in racism against Asian. So it's a form of racism. And so for them to say that it's not racism, it's fetishization, no, like you have to understand it's all encompassing in essence. So,
Yeah, and I think, as far as the violence against Asian groups during this COVID issue, right? Yeah, I guess reports, whatever, have detailed this is originating from China, but then the scapegoating and the, blaming, all this sort of stuff like, oh, Chinese people or Asian people, blah, blah, blah. And it's frustrating because it just reflects the lack of knowledge and and awareness and the purposefulness of of this ignorance. Because, when you study how viruses work, operate, and how, pandemics and even epidemics pan out, like it is so much more complicated. It is directly related to, climate change, deforestation, because, bats are actually very prominent carriers of diseases and viruses and stuff like that. And so bats normally reside in caves and that sort of stuff. But, capitalism, exploitation, just take. Well, I mean, most ores and valuables and minerals are found in caves. So, these bats don't have a home. So they just find whatever else they can find, and so that migration from the huge, it creates devastating effects. And it's these sort of things that are not talked about and not mentioned. And it's purposeful, and so now we develop or we go into a situation where now we're blaming Asian people for this. And it's like, fam, this is just part of the propaganda mill. It's more complicated than this, but you're also falling as a fool to whatever,
to the propaganda system.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's frustrating, dog.
Yeah. Actually, in terms of like, when actually I was engaging in this app that I made a part of, like the Clubhouse. So I got into this app and there was a discussion in regards to like, well, it did come from China, so it's okay to say China virus, right? We're like, no, it has a name. It has a name. It's COVID.
Someone said that?
It's COVID-19. Oh, he also added that, well, there's a reason why we call Spanish flu Spanish, because it came from Spain. But I'm like, bruh, it's called Spanish flu, but the actual first case that were found was actually in Kansas. So like you're not, that if you're using that logic, it doesn't apply. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like Spanish flu, the first case was found in Kansas, and so
what?
You know what I mean? So
can't you even like? Well, how does it not connect for him that there comes a negative connotation of that term in general on how it like affects people? He doesn't have that broad perspective or understanding of that, right? Like for us, once we heard it, we knew what he meant by that. But for this person, he saw it in that way, in a very one-way,
like it's
way.
Okay to accept
tunnel
it.
vision. Yeah, it's very tunnel vision. That's a very like broad understanding of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is something Mike has pointed out before, because these, I share several frustrations, but it's double-edged, because on one hand, we're privileged enough to be educated and be aware of these issues. And so we have to also be aware and cognizant of not sounding too elitist or too arrogant. It's like, why can't you, or how do you not see this? Because, it could be, it could be A or B, right? It could be that other person genuinely is very bigoted and, they just have a lot of, like in a sense, right? A lot of prejudice that's just very like rigid, right? but it also could be a situation where that person is, just ignorant in the definition of ignorant, right?
Just don't know
unaware,
better.
doesn't know, and this is a perspective that they've never been exposed to, and so you know what I'm saying. So it's complicated,
For
because
sure. Well, we are a platform where we educate, and that's why this is a great opportunity.
So platform's your new thing. So you got platform, I got channel. All right.
This is a great opportunity for us to use our space to actually be able to educate folks. So if folks are listening, these are what's happening. And in regards to we were talking about in previous episodes of ethnic studies, right? Like that's another form of education. And in a sense, statistically, there's out of the 50 states, there are only 9 states with policy around ethnic studies. Out of the 50, right? And out of the 9 that has the policies, those policies are under attack, right? And so, and also I want to add to that is that our education doesn't have to come from the institution. I think we talked about these things right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can create a systemic institution where our taxpayer, our collective resources can be directed to this education system. But we know that there's going to be resistance in that sense. But where we at now, we can actually have this education. We can create a space where people can learn about these systemic issues in the work that we do in the grassroots, whether it's NAACP, whether it's Anak Bayan, whether it's Malaya, whether it's NAFCON. So the work has to be done. The onus is on us. The onus is on us to do the work in our community, to address the different issues and that are happening. And so it's a must that we continue to organize and educate folks to be able to mobilize them to enact change in essence. So.
And, that's why I didn't specify, whether education and awareness in this context stems directly from institutions, the orthodox manner, because as you've mentioned several times, education can happen anywhere, whether it's at an actual institution of education or community work, that sort of stuff, because we recognize there are issues of accessibility to higher education or just institutions of education. So, so that's what I mean, where just the lack of education and awareness doesn't necessarily have to be tied to, orthodox schooling. It could just be, you just don't have clique circles, or you're not part of a, I guess, community or part of an organization or whatever have it, that, shares this awareness and knowledge.
Yeah.
For sure. Sometimes people are in a bubble,
Yeah. It's crazy because I learned a lot about this stuff very early on. I know Jonathan knows that for sure. Junior year, right? I took Facing History. I was really into history. My teacher at the time, junior year, she, we touched on the United Farm Workers thing, and she actually, it was just like one paragraph in the textbook, but she actually showed us a documentary about it. So I appreciate her for doing that, right? And then I went to this little leadership program called Camp Everytown, where we touched on a lot of these very tough issues. And when I came back with it to a bunch of high school students, they didn't really accept it or understand it because they weren't at that level yet. And it took me a long time to really find my crowd. I know Jonathan's been there every step of the way with in terms of being more conscious and aware about the issues that's around us. But I mean, growing up, it was very difficult. But once I found the community is there. You just got to really search for it and look and build with those people. Like you always emphasize, Mike, you always got to build with others.
Yeah.
Right?
But that relationship.
It's beautiful. Just the emotional and energy connection of being on the same vibrational level is just unexplainable.
For sure. Learning is fucking beautiful. Actually, I was in this clubhouse again in this room where the room was called The Legend of Malcolm X. And they were playing his speech specifically on November 10, 1963, and the message to grassroots, right? And that speech talked about a lot of things, but at the end, he was calling out MLK. He was calling out Martin Luther King. And what I learned from that speech, this is why it's important to separate the history of what they teach you, but versus the history of the actual people, the people's history. Like X, Malcolm X called out MLK in regards to the march in Washington. And so historically, Malcolm X expressed that 6 leaders in the civil rights movement, including King, got paid $800,000 to lead, to make sure that it was a peace movement, and it was orchestrated by the liberals, that specific march. And so he called it out. He said that the people at the time were ready to make changes. They were ready to shut down airports, ready to shut down roads, ready to shut down anything in demand to meet their demands as a black community at the time in the 1960s, right? And so, but because people were mad and they were willing to do things, there was a liberal elite that paid the civil rights leaders to orchestrate, to make sure that these people that are about to go do something, to make sure that it's a peaceful protest, it's a peaceful march. He was talking about in his speech. We'll look at the speech. He talked about like the signs that we're holding, the signs they're holding, the songs they're singing, and all those things were all orchestrated. And so again, like it's important to understand history and not the history of what people, of the very system of the teach you, but the history of the people. Like if you listen to that speech is very powerful. And he even talked about James Baldwin also wanted to speak at that moment in that march, but he wasn't allowed to because he wasn't part of the group of people that got paid to make sure that it was orchestrated, because James Baldwin was about to say some shit. You know what I mean?
He's very critical.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And so, there's, but at the same time, like we can't discount Martin Luther King's work. In essence, from that point, like after that, he made regrets. He showed his regrets and expressed his regrets in terms of how things have gone. And actually, that was what led him to be more actually radical in a sense. So yeah, so that's like something I learned in regards to looking at history. And so yeah.
Yeah, and something that I've learned during a history course I took in community college was that MLK and Malcolm X had differing philosophies, rhetoric at the beginning, right? And so as time progresses, you start to see how their original points ended up being sort of like transferred from one to another, because Malcolm X was very spoken about the white devil and all this sort of stuff. But when he took a trip to Mecca and he saw that there were white Muslims, he started to rethink about what he previously held. And then MLK, right, always about peaceful protest and all this sort of stuff taken from Gandhi. But then as the years pass, he starts the most one of his famous speeches, right? I forget the title, but it's America May Go to Hell or something like that. And so he talks about the issues of inequality stemming from capitalism and all this sort of stuff. So it's pretty interesting how you see that.
Yeah.
But something I also wanted to touch on was sort of, being cognizant of figures and icons, and in a sense being able to separate them from the movements and the people behind those movements. Because most recently we had Cesar Chavez Day, and Cesar Chavez is very well known for UFW and workers' rights, field workers' rights and all that sort of stuff. But something that was brought to my attention recently, and it was very astonishing for me to hear, was he was anti undocumented folks. And I have a friend whose father was actually part of the UFW, but because he was undocumented, that sort of stuff, he had negative experiences where feds were called on him. And so I was just like, holy shit, I never heard about this.
Yeah.
but I, something that one of my mentors mentioned, right, was like, it's important to be aware of these things.
Yes.
But, recognizing more the movement and the people behind that for the momentum that was created, because,
For sure.
people aren't perfect, and we should hold people accountable for their faults, but not necessarily do some dumb shit like cancel. It's just like, you gotta hold people accountable, but
No, it was like it was like a critique in essence of not necessarily MLK, but the movement for Black liberation, and so that's where there was a critical time in a sense that it could have been used for critical change and radical change, but it wasn't. In regards to Cesar Chavez, Cesar Chavez, again, these people had some great impacts, right?
Yeah.
But they also are human beings and they have their own contradictions. And I think, Cesar Chavez actually supported Marcos. And he went to the Philippines and visited Marcos, even though his comrades in the game was like, no, he's a fascist, don't go out there. But
he did it.
But again, he was part of a movement that created change.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we know that, from the UFW, the Delano Manongs, Philip Veracruz, and what he said was that the movement has go beyond its leaders. You know what I mean? The movement in essence is the people.
Yeah.
Yep.
We cannot put people in a pedestal and expect them to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to fuck up at some point, but I think we have to rely on the masses, or the toiling masses, the people, and the movement in essence is really the power behind these individuals.
Yeah.
And so let's not put individuals in a pedestal. Let's uplift the whole community, that we have the people, we have the power to change. You know what I mean? We are the maker of motherfucking history.
Just one last point I want to get across, Kyle.
Let's go.
There's a very prominent song in one of Kendrick Lamar's albums, To Pimp a Butterfly, last track. It's called Mortal Man.
Let's go.
And
you gonna rap
what
it?
I love. What's up?
You gonna rap it?
I mean, it's the hook is pretty much like the one line repeated a couple times, but in the hook, Kendrick raps, "When shit hits the fan, are you still a fan? When shit hits the fan, are you still a fan? Do you believe in me?" And he just kind of goes through these hypotheticals where he talks about if the feds were to find cocaine in his car, would they think it's Kendrick Lamar, or would they think that the government set him up and all this sort of stuff? And it delves into these sort of complexes, right? Where and it's very symbolic of the track title, Mortal Man, because as we mentioned, right, we are human beings. We are with flaws. We're not perfect, but, it's about having a critique of the overall person and being able to not necessarily fall under these black and white paradigms, but just being able to, really take in the whole picture and that sort of stuff. And so, it's something that I found interesting, and I loved it because it speaks on to, it's a critique, I'd say, as to cancel culture, because, leftists and liberals, they expect you to be sort of perfect and all this sort of stuff. And it's just sort of like, if you have a flaw, a fault, then you get canceled. And if it's, something drastic, obviously like murder or sexual abuse, pedophilia, that sort of stuff. Dude, that's a whole different realm. Nah, bro, you done.
Actually, but let me touch on the cancel culture. In essence, it is a reflection of the dominant system, because we have a punitive dominant system. We have a punitive culture, right? When we punish people, right? I want to make an example in terms of historical example, is that in Vietnam, there were black soldiers that were captured by the Vietnamese. But instead of doing something bad to them, the Vietnamese people educated them. And they educated these black soldiers, and they went back to Nigeria to start their own movement for liberation, in essence.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That is the most humane motherfucking thing you can do, is to educate. They didn't cancel them, right? But in actuality, because we are human being and we have the capacity to be a human and be empathetic, we can learn things. You know what I mean? It's the very system that actually teaches us to be individualistic, but in actuality, like we are human and we have naturally like feel and empathize for people's pain and struggle. And so I'm like, in terms of that example, like instead of like punishing people, because that's what we do in the system, instead of punishing them, we have to create a system where we educate people. You know what I mean? So they can do better in essence. Because when you punish them, that's it. Like nothing changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and at the same time, the cancel culture and the punitive system is reactive. That something has happened already, versus we have to create a condition where we are proactive and continuing to educate our community, our people, to create a condition where we can all be, and we don't have to do things, you know what I mean, to harm anyone or to exploit anyone in this made up condition where resources are very scarce. In actuality, like there's enough for every motherfucking body, you know what I mean? And so yeah. Just touching on that.
Like in a social issue sense too. Like I agree with you. If you were to think about the prison system and the war on drugs, that is based off punishment. But in actual reality, it does nothing, right? What we need is rehabilitation, empowerment to change these people and shift these people. It's crazy because my English class that I'm in right now, we talked about that, how we always fall under this system of always wanting to punish people, right? And I also liked how you touched on not looking at things on a black and white level, Jonathan. You're right. I think at the end of the day, we have our own perceptions. We have our own view of life, and we understand things differently. But it's always up to you to find your own truth. But don't take things as it is, right? I've met so many people throughout the life who are like, no, that just means that. That means A. It'll always mean A. But in reality, there's factors that always revolve around different things of why it happens. And if, I empower the listeners to always look at things from a more bigger perspective, because there's always something to it. You just have to find it. And sometimes the reason why we do that is because at the end of the day, a lot of these things are a reflection of ourselves. Either if it's who we were in the past, who we are now, or who we are going to become in the future. Just think about that. Yeah, that's one thing I want to put out there. Go ahead, Jonathan. My bad.
Yeah, this kind of touches upon something, I love watching the series Narcos on Netflix. But it's not necessarily like, oh yeah, badass people, guns, no, it's because I read between the lines. I look at the undertones, because you think about Narcos, right? They're big time drug dealers, that sort of stuff. And people throw shit at them because obviously, they're violent and those sort of stuff. But, a lot of people also talk about how they sell drugs, and those drugs reach people and kids, and, it ruins people's lives. But then they throw a lot of shit to these narcos. But then I ask the question, okay, but as Mike said, right, we got to look into this, right? We got to dissect this. Why are there narcos? Because it's a form of income. People need to generate income to live. Well, why are these guys resorting to this? Because of a shitty government, a failing system that, it's just sink or swim. And so that's sort of some of the things that I think about, right? I don't like to look at things in black and white dimensions. I like to analyze the full picture and really take a look at the scope of things, because, just that in of itself, Narcos, right? Like now we're starting to delve into more issues related to systemic inequalities and oppression. But you can just easily write that off as a black and white issue, where it's just sort of like, oh, narcos, bad people. And I mean, I'm no stranger to, drama or shit, but, this is my critique against, Christianity and Catholicism, because that's pretty much what the rhetoric and the foundation is. It's good, evil, black, white, good, sin, right? It teaches you to think about but like right from the books, right? The general philosophy is it teaches you to look at life in this sort of limelight, but that's an issue because it's so narrowing. It's so narrowing to your field of like your perspective and your view on things. And so, that's kind of my thing on that. But, pretty much going back to what I mentioned earlier, right? Yeah, as Mike said, it's important to look at the movement and the people behind that, and how much momentum people can garner when, you know, they start to believe in themselves, because we all think that we need a leader, that we need that one person to guide us, when it's like, no, we all have the potential to do it ourselves. Maybe that one person can be our training wheels, but dog, we all have the potential to do that. And so, you know, that's why I love that track from Kendrick Lamar, but also the whole album in of itself. It's a beautiful masterpiece. So
Okay. Well, you know, in terms of leaders, like, what makes a leader in terms of enacting change, social change? It's really, a leader is a great follower.
Yes, sir.
A great follower of the very people that he wants to serve. You know what I mean? Because if he is representing the very people that he is supposed to serve, then all the things that he's going to lead to will always be in the interest of the very people. And so you have to follow the wants and the needs of the very people you want change for. And so I know sometimes we get in this leadership, and there's in the belly of the beast in this capitalist system is a different leadership where one is like the best person that decides everything, right? But in terms of social change, that's not the kind of leadership we need. We need a leadership that is capable of representing the needs and the wants of the masses. You know what I mean? So let's go.
Yes, sir. Hey, it's the absurdity of the day, bro. Let's go.
No, we getting too heavy. Let's get silly right now.
Let's get silly. All right. So we talked about alcohol a couple times. We talked about it today with Jonathan mentioned tequila in the last episode with 35 Manly. If y'all haven't peeped it, episode 20.
Patronus.
So I'm gonna give you a little absurdity about alcohol. All right. So did y'all know that Kentucky has more bourbon than people?
Wow.
Wait, is there like 20 people in Kentucky?
I mean, do y'all know anyone that lives in Kentucky? I ain't know no one.
That ugly motherfucker, Mitch McConnell.
Oh man, yeah.
So okay, should we guess? Can we guess how many bourbons in Kentucky? Is that what the question?
No, there's more bourbon than people in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, Kentucky.
Let's see. You guys want me to check how many people there are?
Yeah, population.
Okay, let's check right now.
Let's check the population of Kentucky, the state.
Okay,
Kentucky is a state, right?
Yeah, it's a state. It's a state.
So
I want to say
what's the 50 states? Let's go.
2.5 mil.
Dude, you said 2. What's your guess, Mike?
Kentucky? I'm trying to picture Kentucky. Yo, that's like at least 3 mil.
3 mil?
Yeah. This is like the Price is Right and shit.
So it is 4.4 million. So what they're saying is that you got closer. So there's
Price
more.
is Right.
There's more than 4.4 million Kentucky bourbon in Kentucky than the people there.
You know, I mean, I was trying to, when I was thinking of the number, I was also thinking like, I don't think this state goes over double digits. Like in terms of, you know, like if I were to say above 10 million people, I was like, I feel like it's small. I feel like it's a single digit mil sort of like.
That's 4 San Jose's if you think about it. That's 4 San Jose's.
Yeah, because you're trying to picture like where it is, the geography and how small it is.
Yeah.
To calculate how many.
Behind me, I actually have a map.
Okay.
Where is it? He's checking right now.
Okay.
Okay, where is Kentucky? Tell me the states around
Where is
it.
Kentucky? It's like you're in 5th grade and
Bro,
shit.
okay, I see it. Where is it?
You got it labeled.
Point it on the thing, Mike.
Point it. Where is it?
Oh shit, I'm trying to get the glare out of here. But the way I learned it is you look for the chicken leg.
Okay. Oh, it looked like a chicken.
That's hella
the red
small.
one.
It's like a chicken leg.
The red. Oh, it's a chicken leg.
What is it next to?
So
The blue one.
Let me guide y'all through something. So if you start at Minnesota, it's like the chef's hat, and then Iowa is the chef's face. Missouri is the chef's like body. Arkansas is like their legs. Louisiana is their boots, and then Tennessee is a tray, and then the tray is holding a fried chicken leg.
This is like kindergarten geography.
Okay, interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate your education.
Yes.
Remind us of the geography.
Mike, any upcoming projects before we end today's podcast, brother?
Upcoming projects. Well, I'm just PYB is the project. We hope to expand. If folks are listening, share with your friends, and feel free to comment, like, and let us know if you have other folks that might be interested in being a guest. Yeah, that would be fucking beautiful.
Let's go.
Another project is the blaziblah podcast. Make sure you check it out. We blaziblah, lari-dari, forget about it. You know what I mean? And then I have UGAT clothing. This is the shop. And I'm hoping to maybe open it up when things open up a shop or in store when things go down a little bit.
Oh, shit.
And so we'll have a store opening
lit.
up soon. And in that wall, this full wall will have a mural.
Oh,
And so I'm working to put that together. There's going to be a lot of work happening.
Hell
yeah, and just the work in the community for sure. If folks are interested in doing work or like being part of the community or just wanting to learn, hit me up. Hit any of us up, and if we can do it, we will redirect you to other resources that can provide what is it that you want and need. So, yeah, that's it. What's good?
Once again, this is Kyle.
Mike D, what's good?
Y'all know who it is. I'm just kidding.
Hey, next
Champ.
week's episode, we got the champ coming up, catching up on his life. 6-month checkups. That's what we doing this whole month, y'all. Let's go.
Hey, the champ. Hey.